I think in our last episode or a few episodes back, we talked about fear. And it's so conditioned in how we live and how we think. Mm-hmm. And it's so hardwired into our subconscious that we can go on autopilot and feel the physiological functions of the fear and without actually really thinking about where it's coming from. Mm-hmm. And that happens for lots of people, including myself. One thing I wanted to bring up was when I was younger, I've always had an affinity to music as a mm-hmm. musician. I've always had a knack for things like playing the guitar and singing. So it was never really an issue for me, but I came across a lot of people on my path that were aspiring to be musicians, aspiring to be artists. One common sort of dialogue that you hear in that sort of space is people not feeling worthy enough to do it. I mean, there's a lot of practice involved. I think I read somewhere that you needed at least 10 to 20,000 hours of anything in order to perfect it, like in order to be, proficient in mm-hmm. whatever craft that is. And I think that's definitely true, but it's a story that you often hear. And I thought to myself, like, well, why is it that people listen to that with such intensity in such a way that they do? What sort of dialogue goes through their mind when they affirm that to themselves? And the couple of people that I've spoke to had either parents that weren't supportive of their dreams, mm-hmm. maybe a mother or a father that wanted them to be a doctor instead of a musician, or maybe there was a fellow musician that was somehow at odds with this person and looked at it more like a competition. Basically, mm-hmm. what I'm trying to say is a lot of the people that I've met that go through that dialogue of, I can't do this, is because somebody told them that. And the person that told them that, somebody said the same thing to them too.
Right.
So it becomes this reverberation of negativity where somebody's, sense of self-worth or not feeling good enough mm-hmm. is being externalized to somebody else out of either regret, or it could be just in spite, or it could just be resentment. It seems natural for a lot of people that if they can't do something, they don't want somebody else to do it either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you have to push through that. You have to push through that sort of like that ego's dialogue, because it's so hardwired, I think, in our culture, even in like Western society. Whenever we think of taking on a really substantial task, mm-hmm. that's the first voice that comes in. Who are you to think that you can do this?
Right.
Who are
mm-hmm.
you to think that you can change the world?
Right.
And so we have a lot of our conditioning and our influence comes from media. What we identify as changing the world is the things that we see on TV. Well, making a movement, a revolution, mm-hmm. some sort of impact to where you are influencing thousands and hundreds and millions of people. If you can't do that, somehow in your mind, that isn't enough. Like You're not going to make it happen. And all my life have been the type of person that's like, as long as you're changing one person, you're changing the entire universe. We don't see how it all plays out for other people. And I'm coming from the space of being somebody that has been impacted by a lot of other people's work in a positive way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I may be one person, but that goodness and that love that I feel from listening to somebody else's podcast or listening to a song like Loon.
Yeah.
Or experiencing something that stays with me, and that makes an impact on everybody in my space.
Right.
It influences 100%. My entire family, my entire circle of friends.